Hello everyone, welcome back to Limitless React. This time we are going to be ranking all 23 Marvel movies from the worst to the best, including Spider-Man Far From Home, of course, the latest Marvel movie. Of course, you guys know that we already have rumor of Black Widow making the scene, so if you guys enjoy this series, don't forget to smack that like button, subscribe down below, and alright, let's get started. In last place, we have Thor: The Dark World. This movie didn't really do too much right. I mean, the little emotion that it did have ended up being wasted with the return of Loki and Thor Ragnarok, so it really didn't really hold out too much. The only real emotion that I guess you could say we had is Thor's mother dying, but even that we hadn't had a deep connection with her. And the main villain really did not connect with me at all. Neither did the side plot line of Jane Foster and whatever was going on there in the final battle just really did not end up working out for me, which is why it comes in last place. In our number 22 spot, we have The Incredible Hulk. Although this movie wasn't, when this movie was made, the Marvel formula hadn't really been set in stone yet. The only first movie that we had was Iron Man 1. So being that this movie didn't really have much to go off of, it's not surprising to see that it didn't have that Marvel charm that we see in a lot of today's movies. The ending battle with this wasn't, in fact, it's one of my favorite things about this whole movie, or even in the MCU, but the rest of the film fails to deliver any really excitement. And with the casting of Mark Ruffalo as a new character, it just really did not do the character justice. Coming in at our number 21 spot, we have Iron Man 2. Although this movie had a pretty good villain in my eyes, but although we didn't really get too much time with them, I wish they wouldn't have wasted such a good villain on a movie with a plotline that didn't involve the villain that much. However, the only really interesting part of this movie is the plotline with Tony and needing to save himself from his arc reactor, and then he discovers the new element. But other than that, none of the storylines really connected deep with me. Even the part with Rhodey, and of course you had that too. We had the new casting of Rhodey. So altogether, it just felt like they were really trying to push a lot of things together that didn't really make the plot line make too much sense. Well, that's why it comes in at our number 21 spot. At our number 20 spot, we have Captain Marvel. Although this movie is, on the newer side of the MCU, it really did not connect deeply with me at all. I don't find, now it's nothing against the actor Brie Larson, but as Captain Marvel, I just do not find her to fit the role at all. I think that a lot of the lines feel very emotionless and just do not connect with who the Captain Marvel character it is at all. I'm not a big fan at all of what they did with her in Avengers Endgame and how she wasn't involved in the storyline a lot. I think that they could have even, perhaps defeated Thanos alone without even needing this movie in there. I think they should have, I think they definitely could have picked a better role for it, or even taught, I just feel that this character was very underwhelming when it first came out. The movie itself was okay, and the plot line with the being tricked and being mind swept into thinking that she was on the side of the good guys when in fact she was not, kind of was okay, but I just didn't really connect deeply with it as a plot line of a whole movie. Coming in at our number 19 spot, we have the original Thor. This movie really, obviously, it was the first movie ever in the MCU to ever go into the world of outer space and explore that realm, because other than that, we'd only been on Earth. So, being that, it really did not disappoint too much in showing us, the different parts of Asgard and showing us the different characters that dwell on it, like Loki, Odin, of course Thor. But the parts that I really enjoyed was when he was able to go to Earth and meet the different people that were there, like Jane Foster and her friends, and the famous scientist that was there. I really enjoyed the whole plot line with him and Loki trying to take over and him becoming humble on the Earth. I also, although it wasn't a big Easter egg, I really did enjoy the parts with Hawkeye and getting to see the first glimpse of Hawkeye in this movie, with him escaping the I wouldn't call it a camp, but it was like a government facility, of course, trying to keep Thor's hammer under wraps. So that's why it comes in at our number 19 spot. At our number 18 spot, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I feel that this movie, especially when I went to go first see it in theaters, really tried to mimic or copy the first Guardians of the Galaxy and its charm that it had, but really did not was not able to get it on that level the original had. The whole plot line with the Sovereigns kind of confused me in what involvement, that it could just have been replaced with another army in space. It doesn't even matter who they would have been. The one part of this movie that I really did love, in fact, was Baby Groot, and I thought that his part with Rocket Raccoon and, the other Guardians was really well played out. I liked Mantis in this movie as well. As you could see that she was this character, who was uncomfortable, but at the same time, she also had emotion, because she knew what Peter Quill's dad was doing, and she just kind of knew what they were getting into, and I like how she ended up joining the Guardians at the end of this movie. I wasn't overly fond of the plotline with Quill and his father, but it was okay. That's why it comes in at our number 18 spot. In our number 17 spot, we have Captain America: The First Avenger. The first half hour of this movie, I very much enjoyed, and in fact, the rest of the movie would have went at the pace that the first half hour of this movie was going. It would probably be a lot higher on this list, because it was absolutely phenomenal. However, when they started getting into World War II, and they kind of, in my opinion, they kind of went a little too fast when getting to the World War II section, and kind of just showing off like what he did, just showing off his new abilities that he had gained from the super serum. I did very much enjoy when he goes on the mission to save Bucky, at the camp, and of course the part where he crash lands the plane, so that New York City doesn't get bombed or anything like that. But other than that, I felt like the movie was a little dry in what Captain America was supposed to represent, so that's why it comes in at our number 17 spot. At number 16, we have Avengers Age of Ultron. Out of all the Avenger movies, this one was, of course, definitely did not live up to the hype of the other three, although it wasn't bad. The only thing I found particularly frustrating was how Thor, we saw what was trying to happen, and we knew what was happening, but it just didn't really, I felt like he wasn't as big of a part of this movie. Like, he was almost like distant from the plot, and I kind of wish he was just more involved in what was going on. As someone who particularly likes Ultron as a villain, I just feel that they made him a little bit too comedic in this movie, which really killed the vibe, the plot, the terror and what he was trying to do to everyone, and it just really didn't make him that much of a compelling villain. I feel that maybe if they tried to redo him again, try to twist it so that he wasn't as comedic, that he would definitely be able to do better in that movie. So that's why it comes in at our number 16 spot. In our number 15 spot, we have Iron Man 3. Although I did not like the way they portrayed the Mandarin in this movie at all, and I think that they should have saved it for maybe an Iron Man sequel, or just a different plotline in general. I think that they could have definitely made a great movie about Extremis and what happened there, and just how that kind of all affected Tony's life, and going into Pepper and them taking her, and then finding out that she was compatible with it. Made for some very interesting plot details. I was a big fan of the way that he had all the different Iron Man suits at the end come together for that final battle, which is definitely one of my favorite final battles in the MCU. But the rest of the movie kind of is a little bit weak in comparison to that final battle. We just kind of have this little build-up of, especially when he gets to meet the Mandarin for the first time, it was just kind of a little underwhelming. So that's why it comes in at our number 15 spot. At our number 14 spot, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. Compared to the first movie, this movie really did not do too bad for a sequel. I really did like the, how following up to what happened in Ant-Man, how the Wasp became a main part of this movie and wasn't just there to train Scott Lang. I really enjoyed Ghost as a villain, although many people do not like her. I really enjoyed with what she went through, her emotion, why she was doing things, because she wasn't doing it to be a bad person. She wanted to save herself instead of, so she felt that if she was going to die anyway, that she might as well try any, resource necessary to get there. I also kind of like the after effects of Civil War playing into this, with Scott not being able to leave his house and how they were all to manage that. So that's why it comes in at a number 14 spot. At number 13, we have Spider-Man Far From Home. This movie really, obviously had a lot of us tricked from the get-go. Many people saying that Mysterio was a good guy, many people saying that he was a bad guy. Obviously with the Barson we found out that, he was not in fact a good guy, and he was trying to get Edith so that he could, replace Tony Stark, but not necessarily a good way, but also in a fake way, not really caring what it took to get to there, even if it meant killing people. I really enjoyed the different suits that we got to see in this movie, with the advanced suit, the stealth suit, really making it, Spider-Man, of course, look good again. One of the things that I thought was somewhat funny throughout the movie was the plotline with Happy and Aunt May. I was not overly fond of the way that they used a lot of comedy in this movie. I thought the comedy was good, but I think that they could have used a little bit more of serious moments, especially coming right after Endgame. I just felt that the comedy was a little bit overtaking of the seriousness that went on in the plot. So that's why it comes in at a number 13 spot. At number 12, we have Ant-Man. This movie was very similar to the original Iron Man in that, we had the opposite of what the hero was doing, trying to copy his suit, mad at him because he felt that he was getting to, he was jealous of what he was doing. I was okay with the villain in this movie, but like I said before, I felt that he was a little copycat of the original Iron Man. However, I did really like a lot of the cast that came into this, with Michael Douglas, Paul Rudd. I just really enjoyed a lot of those different people working together. Of course, I love the comedy in this movie. Of course, the part with, Falcon and Ant-Man and him going to the Avengers facility. I really enjoyed that part, getting to see him interact with some other people other than, the only people in the Ant-Man universe. What really made Ant-Man shine for me was actually not in this movie, however, but it was in Civil War when he finally got to team up with the other Avengers. But as a single story, I think that this movie did a great job of representing who Ant-Man was. So that's why it comes in at our number 12 spot. Coming in at number 11, we have Black Panther. This movie really set the tone for a different type of formula for the Marvel movies, because before this we had seen the world in a different perspective, but not really ever seeing it from the perspective of someone trying to hide from the rest of the world, or someone that was indigenous to society, not affiliating with themselves with society. So it was cool to see that different culture, and of course the way of Kingdom of Black Panther and Wakanda. I think Chadwick Boseman does a great job in this role, as well as the supporting actors and actresses. I really enjoyed Claw as a villain in this movie. I thought he did great, getting to see him set up in Avengers Age of Ultron with vibranium, and also getting to see the after effects of when Ultron cut off his hand. Teaming up with Eric Killmonger, and I thought Killmonger had a great story, having you almost had real emotion for him because you know what he wanted to do. You can almost sympathize with that, which in fact I definitely did. The only bad thing I guess I could say about this movie was the final end fight between Killmonger and Black Panther, which felt kind of underwhelming considering everything that happened in the movie. So that's why it comes in at our number 11 spot. Coming in at number 10, we have Doctor Strange. When this came out in theaters, I remember this being a very special movie, with effects and everything. To start with the downside first, the only thing that I really did not like about this movie is I felt it could have been bigger if not pushed through the Marvel formula of just the way that they do things. I felt that it would have been a little bit better if it was its own thing, because they could have experimented with a little bit more. And also, on top of that, I felt that they spent a little bit too much time on becoming Doctor Strange instead of getting to him. I know it's supposed to be a solo film, but I just felt that they could have they didn't have to take as much time as him getting to that point of starting to learn the mystic arts. The parts that I did like, however, was the end fight with Dormammu, and how it wasn't just this big out brawl, and how he actually used his magic to end up defeating Dormammu. I love the supporting characters like Wong and just everyone else that comes together in this movie really had good chemistry. I thought that the visual effects in this movie were, of course, amazing. So that's why it comes in at our number 10 spot. Coming in at our number 9 spot, we have the original Iron Man. as something that they did not know from the beginning that was going to, set the course for the entire MCU, this movie really does not get enough credit sometimes. And the fact that it's set up with the 10 rings and, later coming back with Iron Man 3 and the Mandarin, of course, that kind of being a little bit of a letdown. But this movie, I thought, had a great villain, Obadiah Stane. The only thing I think that I can complain about is that I wish they spent a little bit more time developing him and him getting a little bit more angry instead of just him being the final end of this movie. I think that the CGI and everything that they did in this movie was great, being that this was one of their first movies in the MCU. This was the first movie in the MCU that they were able to, experiment with that. I think that Rhodey in this movie was actually really well done, and even though Don Cheadle does a great job as War Machine now, I think that either actor really could have done the character justice, but that's why it comes in at our number 9 spot. At our number 8 spot, we have Spider-Man Homecoming. In terms of being the first Spider-Man movie in the MCU and, discovering that whole new aspect of what seeing the MCU from a kid is like, I think they did a great job casting Tom Holland as this, introducing him in Civil War and then having his own solo movie, not right after, but somewhat a little bit after the events of Civil War takes place. I think that what they did with the Vulture and the casting for that, I think they did a phenomenal job, and also introducing other characters that, although may not have been the main villain, definitely will come up in future films, having people like Scorpion and the Shocker. I really enjoyed having people like them. I also really enjoyed the casting, like for his friends at school, like Ned and Flash. I really thought they did a great job with that. And the plot line, I feel it's definitely one of the most rewatchable films in the MCU. Going back and looking at all these little tidbits, finding out what's relating them to the Tobey Maguire series, which in terms is a very good series as well. But this movie just did a really good job of doing its own little rendition of the character and not really trying to copy any other series. So that's why it comes in at our number 8 spot. Coming in at number 7, we have the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Going into this film, I did not have any clue how they were going to do the first full outer space film, of course having Thor before this, but that movie was not entirely outer space. In fact, it was only really on Asgard, to say the least. But this movie really spread across, of course, outer space, and being in that, they think they did a phenomenal job executing all the different characters and plot lines that could have gone with this. I think having Groot in this movie was a phenomenal job, and of course having Baby Groot in Volume 2, they just really did an outstanding play with the character. I think Peter Quill does an amazing job at getting represented in this movie. We have the plot line with Yondu and him taking Quill from his planet home, from Earth, and then Quill finding, Quill already knows what happened. But I just think that all the characters really fit together well, and I love having Drax in there, and although he's not who he was in the comics, I really enjoy their own rendition of what they're trying to do with him and trying to set up a plot line with him and Thanos and him trying to kill Thanos, although he didn't really get his chance to, so probably won't get his chance to, so I'm excited to see what they do with him in Guardians 3. So that's why it comes in at our number 7 spot. At our number 6 spot, we have Thor Ragnarok. This movie really decided to take a different tone with the Thor series, having Thor 1 and then Thor the Dark World. Really did not do Thor justice, in his own movies. But then this movie completed a complete 180 and just decided to take a more comedic approach on the movie while still having serious elements and real consequences to what was happening. I really enjoyed, Hulk, because he hadn't been in some of the movies for a while, so they had to implement him into the movies, but the way that they did it also made sense, tying into the events of after Age of Ultron. I really enjoyed Valkyrie, coming in and having her plotline, how she had been defeated by Hela and how she was coming back, so she knew that she almost had a reason to go back and fight, being that she was the reason that she gave up in the first place. Of course, you have people like Korg and Meek making a lot of comedic references, and I really like their appearances in Avengers Endgame as well. But I just think that Thor Ragnarok had a really good plot line with the Odin's past, and then Thor learning about it, and you have things like real consequences, like Thor losing his eye, and then at the end of the movie, Thanos coming into the mix with that final credit shot. So I just think that overall, it really had a good plot. An overall great selection of characters. So that's why it comes in at our number 6 spot. Coming in at number 5, we have Captain America the Winter Soldier. this was one of the first movies that I ever saw directed by the Russo brothers, and let me just say, they blew this movie out of the water. Having the first movie, it did the character justice, enough justice, but then having Bucky coming in and having him, this person that had no clue what he was doing, and then having Scarlett Johansson coming in as Black Widow, and then being like a secondary, almost similar to how she was in Iron Man 2, just really set up for some great action sequences. One of my favorite action sequences in the whole MCU is that highway scene between Cap and Bucky and them going to hand-to-hand combat, which is really well done. Of course, you have the introduction with Anthony as the Falcon, and he gets to play his part and also keep going, which I thought they did beautifully. Having the plot of Hydra and how it had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. was also a great way to not only introduce new characters, but introduce some past knowledge of the MCU films and a callback to Captain America, the first Avenger. Just overall having a really, easy to under plot while also having some great new characters in the mix. So that's why it comes in at our number 5 spot. At our number 4 spot, we have Captain America Civil War. In comparison to The Winter Soldier, you really didn't think it would be possible to really top that movie, having all the action that it did, but it definitely, without a doubt, does. It introduces the plot line of Black Panther and Wakanda, and then we have Spider-Man, two of the best superheroes that are out there, introducing them in one movie, while also having, Bucky knowing what he is now, but he also becomes mind-controlled halfway through the movie, and we have that plot line, but he's also starting to get better with it. I really enjoyed because you could really resonate with either Cap's side of not wanting to be under military restriction versus Iron Man's side of wanting to, feel that control, and so that, they wouldn't be harming anyone. But then you also had the miniature plot line, with Iron Man finding out that, Winter Soldier Bucky killed his parents. So, he had that little duke out at the end, and I really enjoyed that, Zemo, trying to break the Avengers apart in that airport battle scene, every comic book fan's dream, having that one-on-one action between all their favorite superheroes, which really just made for some great action and really great storytelling. That's why it came out at our number 4 spot. As we come into our top 3 here, don't forget to leave your list down below of what your MCU rankings are. I'd love to have a lively discussion with you guys in the comment section about where you guys are placing these movies. Although you guys may disagree with me, this is my list, so please don't leave any hate comments in talking about how this movie should have been, because of course this isn't the right list, this is just my list. So I would love to have a great discussion about you guys where we think that you guys think that these movies should be. We could just talk about why we think they should be there. At our number 3 spot, we have the original Avengers. At the time that this movie came out, nothing like this had really ever been done before. We had solo films, and we had other little smaller collaborations, but we never had a single movie build-up, and then one final battle. But of course, we know now that this was definitely not the final battle. But this movie really did a lot right, having the introduction of Hawkeye as a full character in this movie and not just being a small part of it. Doing the same with Black Widow, introducing all of the characters and their chemistries with each other, while also having that great plot line with Loki and, him coming to Earth and him wanting revenge on everyone that, threw him out of Asgard in a way. But I think the part that I really enjoyed the most was getting to see, S.H.I.E.L.D. come together, because we had heard mention of S.H.I.E.L.D. and we knew what it was, but we didn't really get to see any physical or really any evidence of it in the actual film. So it was really nice to see that. One of the other great things I really loved in this movie was the final ending fight between all the characters, and that really great shot of all the Avengers in that one circle. Just a really great shot all together. One of the best shots that I feel is sometimes under a little appreciated is when Mark Ruffalo, he comes in, you see the big robot. I don't even know what you would call it, but he ends up, turning around, becoming Hulk in about 1 to 2 seconds, and just totally face diving this thing, and it just completely, starts folding. Then you have the Iron Man shot, and I just think that was a really great way to, show their collaboration with one another. So that's why this movie comes in at our number 3 spot. As our runner-up, we have Avengers Infinity War. This movie did a great job of introducing Thanos as this person that was not used to what we were seeing, having a villain that was easily defeated by the end of the movie. Of course, having everyone being turned to dust with the snap of Thanos. I think what they did wisely in this movie was they didn't just bring everyone together at once and then have them separate because, of course, the events of Civil War happening. I think what they wisely did was they split each part into groups, parts that felt like they really not match with each other. Maybe having Spider-Man with Iron Man, that little collaboration with the Guardians, that was amazing. It was a really great comedy. But I think something that they also did really well was the plot line with Thor and the Guardians. Issue, just picking up with Rocky. One thing I was not a fan of at all was the way that they treated other than him being the handle of Thor's new axe. I did not think that was a really great part of this. I enjoyed the small commentary
Peter, by the way.
I thought that it could have been better. One of the best things that I enjoyed in this movie was the final ending fight between Doctor Strange and Thanos. Thanos was buff guy. He had intellect in him so that he could be challenged by Doctor Strange. I think that Black Panther and Wakanda being the final fight setting in this movie was a great location. Big open field for all of our heroes to come together. This is why it comes in at our number 2 spot. At our number 1 spot, we have Avengers Endgame. Although the one thing I want to get quickly out of the way, I was not very impressed with what they did with Thor in this movie. However, you can almost understand it because imagine, feeling that you had failed everyone, being like a king, someone that you did not think you were, and then having to deal with that over the course of the year would result in you having some sort of course, depression, and dealing with that is, of course, what we saw as being the fat Thor. I think something else that they did fantastic in this movie was starting off with this little bit of Tony coming back to the Avengers, and then having Captain Marvel be the reason of that, so then her immediately syncing up with the Avengers, and them trying to do what they know best and to just go in head first and just try and defeat Thanos, when in actuality he had already done what needed to be done, having that 5-year span, and then having Ant-Man come out and introduce them a whole new way that they can actually save everyone, was just a really great way to set up everything for this movie. One of the best things was the fan service for this movie, having Pepper Potts come in at the end of the movie. Even the little small little Easter eggs at the end, having Howard the Duck in the background, and having almost look. I think it was an upgraded War Machine at the end, if I'm not mistaken. One of the things that I was kind of okay with was Captain Marvel coming in at the end and being a big hero. I felt that she played a big enough part to what she was supposed to be, but she also wasn't, because I'm glad that they didn't make her a big part, because this really wasn't about her, just coming into the MCU now. I felt that they really shouldn't have made it that she was the one to defeat Thanos. Of course, we have to talk about how Captain America lifted Mjolnir and how he, just was able to immediately pick up the rules and how to properly use it. I really enjoy, you have that Avengers Assemble scene where, everyone comes together, and overall just makes for some really great heartfelt moments. You have the part with Tony and, not wanting to leave his family. So if you guys enjoyed this ranking, don't forget to leave that subscribe button, give that subscribe button a little click. Leave that like button a little click, and comment down below, of course, what you guys want to see next, whether it be another ranking video or a reaction. I am going to be doing something where once I reach 100 subscribers, I will be doing a face reveal. So if you guys want to see that, don't forget to tell your friends, share this video wherever whatever platform you guys use, and stay tuned for more reactions coming your way.